Hi, everyone. This is Steve. And as the title of the episode indicates, I've been giving a lot of thought to the podcast. And for those of you who know that I quit my shitty job, um, that's how I would define it. For those of you who know that I quit working a shitty job that I hated and working in an industry that I hated for essentially 14 years, you know that finally I found a way to leave that job and was able to do that and leave that industry completely, and I'm never going back. And I'm so happy about that, and life is so much better now. My stress level is so much lower without it. No regrets. So happy I left. But of course, the reason I left was because I'm looking into getting a teaching certificate and becoming a teacher, a high school teacher. So that's kind of in front of me right now, and I've had to give a lot of thought to that and my future career. I'd had thoughts of becoming a teacher even back in 2006, but because of the phase of life that Chrissy and I were in with the boys, and they were so young, and we were really overwhelmed. I just graduated from college, and we just needed to stabilize our life, and I just needed to get a job and just kind of like settle things down. And so that's kind of what we did at that point. And I think going to school at that point would have been too much for us. So from that point until now, it's been in the back of my mind the whole time, off and on. And so finally I have this opportunity now where I quit my office job, and now I'm able to I looked at some schools, and so there's this online program I'm gonna apply for, and I have to apply in August to start in January. And so the next few months I'm really going to be focusing on that. That's really important to me. So any of you who've gone to college or applied to a college know, or had kids who applied to a college know that there's a lot of little steps you got to take. You got to submit an application and get transcripts, and there's 100 little things you have to do to apply to a school. And I want to have my focus be really, really narrowed in on that, because that's really important for me, and it's going to be my career. And I'm very excited to start that, and I just want to focus 100% on that. So for the next few months, I'm going to be applying and work, kind of focusing on that, and then of course in January I'll start a program that'll be at the earliest, next January, and then that program's over a year. It's about a year, I think, and so I'm going to be possibly in a master's program, so I'll be doing a lot of work, I imagine. So my focus for that year will be getting a certificate or a master's degree to be able to teach. I want a master's degree, but if for some reason I can't and I just have to get a certificate, whatever it takes, to be a history teacher. That's what I want to do. So I really want to just kind of put my attention toward that. And so that's going to take the next year or two. That's going to be my primary focus, and it really needs to be. And for my happiness, for my fulfillment, for my family, it's something that it's the next step for us and the next step for me. And so because of that, obviously, it makes other things in my life more difficult to maintain, like the podcast. And so I'm not trying to draw this out and make it all suspenseful or anything, but I just want to let everyone know that I just can't commit to doing like a bi-weekly podcast or having a time frame of any kind to put out episodes. And I'm sure all of you understand that, and I'm sure everyone's like, oh, okay, yeah, it makes sense, But I think I put too much pressure on myself to try to be consistent, and I want people to know, like, okay, we'll have an episode out, consistently every other week. And obviously the last, I don't know, year, I've not been good at that. So for various reasons. But anyway, I thought, quitting my office job, I would have all this extra time to be able to work on the podcast and focus on it. And not only am I thinking about my future and teaching and things, but I'm also finding that like I'm feeling overwhelmed by even just the simple tasks involved in getting an episode out. So, reaching out to potential guests, and record, setting aside time to record the interview, and then which I always love. I love talking to people and hearing their stories. It's awesome. But just the whole process of like setting it all up and then editing it, and then posting it, just everything involved, all the little tasks and things you have to do. For me, it feels really overwhelming right now, and I'm sort of surprised by that. But I just think it's a sign that like I just need to set it aside for a while, and it may mean I don't know what it means for the future of the podcast entirely. I really love helping those of us who have left Christianity and who went through a lot of pain because of it. I love helping this community, so to speak, of people, because I know how much I needed it, and who were really encouraged by hearing the stories of other people who've left, to just give them strength to know they're not alone and to feel like, you know what, I'm going to get through this. That piece of the podcast is like the most important thing. And I don't want to give up the opportunity to be able to help people in that way. However, I also know that it's too much for me right now, and I don't think I can do it. So I just need to take that expectation that I've put on myself to get these episodes out in a certain amount of time and to keep that going. I just need to take that off of my plate. I just have to right now. However, that doesn't mean that I want to never come back to the podcast. Like I said, I want to keep that door open to be able to every once in a while do an interview, put it out there. That sounds fun to me, and being a podcaster is fun. It's been like a fun hobby, and I learned a new skill, I guess you could say, like how to set up a website and how to like podcast and post it and all that. And I put a lot of effort into it years ago when I was setting it up, and had to learn a lot of things I'm not good at because I'm not very techie. I know just enough to get a podcast out and set up a website on Squarespace. That's pretty much all I knew. So I knew enough to do all that, and so it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it, and so I don't want to like say, okay, I'm done, moving on, because I don't really want to move on in that sense. I want this to be a part of my life, but maybe just not on the front burner, maybe on the back burner, So especially considering the fact that I'm looking forward to a career now, and it's it's within arm's reach. To become a teacher, it's so close now. I'm like, the biggest obstacles are all out of the way, and so I'm super excited about that. Anyway, the whole point of this episode, or this update or whatever, is just to say, like, I just need a break, and I need to focus on some different things in my life right now. So I just wanted to just let all of you know that I'm not going to commit to putting out episodes in any time frame whatsoever. I'm going to keep the podcast up, and probably, cut my monthly plan with Libsyn, which is the hosting company that makes it possible to do a podcast. It's like $5 a month, so it's not bad at all, and it's not a problem for me to just keep that going. And I've never asked for people to donate to the podcast. And when people have asked to donate, I've just said I'm not set up for that. And I wasn't accepting any money, and I've never wanted to. Not that I have a problem with people giving money to things that they want to support. That's fine. And I've done it myself. But for whatever reason, it just doesn't feel right to me. For me, this was about encouraging us. And I want to give back to this community of people, this group of people in the world that I call deconverts. I don't want to ask things of them. So I'm not asking, and I don't want any kind of financial support to keep the website up or financial support to keep the podcast alive. That's not what this is about. but I'm just going to keep it basically like on maintenance mode. So I'll keep it up, and you can listen to past episodes. And then every once in a while, when I want to post a new one, I'll be able to do that, which is cool. I think that's great, and I'm excited to be able to keep it going. But something that has been kind of sentimental and kind of a difficult decision for me to make is I'm very likely by the end of the summer gonna not keep my website going. So I haven't been able to maintain it in about a year because I was just so busy with life, and I just can't do it anymore. I just can't keep a website like updated, and it's, I think a website, it's costing me like $100 to $200 a year to like keep it up, which, in a year is not that much money, but I'm not going to pay it if I'm not using it. And I can still stay in touch with listeners, and through my Gmail. So my Steve at VOD podcast email will go away in the fall, but I have another email, vodpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, that's my personal email, so I can just use that. It's not linked to the website or anything. So I'm figuring I'll just stay in touch with people that way if they want to reach out or say hi or anything. So that's kind of the plan. The website will come down by the end of the summer. I'll keep the podcast kind of up, but I'm not going to commit to producing any episodes. I'm not going to take any guests unless I feel like it, pretty much. And I'm sorry for those of you who really are encouraged by these stories. I'm sorry that I'm not able to get out more regularly. I'm sorry that I won't be able to provide that. So I feel sad about that. I also know there are other podcasts out there that are doing similar things to this podcast. I would not remember all the names of them, so I'm not going to try to remember all of them. But if you email me and you want to know, I'd be happy to share the ones that come, that are on the top of my mind. Two, though, friends of mine that I just want to put out their podcast names in case you haven't heard of them. So there's the Graceful Atheist. He was on the podcast early on, and he's got a podcast going, and it's awesome. And I think anyone who listens to this podcast would love it. And then Marie Delafont has Everyone's Autonomous, her podcast. And she's been awesome, just connecting with her last year and getting to know her a little bit. And finally, I actually got to meet her a couple months ago. That was really cool. So she has a podcast too, so you can check those out. And there's a ton of other, The Life After comes to mind. Other podcasts are out there that share these stories, maybe not like exclusively share deconversion stories, but they're done by atheists or ex-Christians, So check those out if you're looking for something different or something else in the meantime. And I do have one more episode that I will be posting. This is another thing that makes me feel stressed and overwhelmed and anxious, is that when I record an episode and then weeks go by and the guests are like, hey, any idea when you might post the episode? I feel really crappy about that because they deserve to have their story, posted if they've taken the time to share it with me. And I feel like I owe it to them to do that. And so that's another thing that's been kind of hard to stay on top of. And anyhow, I do have one more that I will be posting in the coming weeks. As I find time, I'll post it. That's the only other planned and recorded interview. So just to review, I will be keeping my email, vodpodcast@gmail.com. That will be active forever. And then my podcast will still be up so you can listen to old episodes. And I'll post an episode if I find time in the coming months. But I'm not going to commit to anything because I don't think I can right now. So just one final little note. Like right now in my life, I feel like Chrissy and I are still settling into our house that we moved into in December. It just feels like we move really slowly when we're moving in, and things like this just take forever for us. I don't know why, but so we're still unpacking things and kind of, we're just starting to paint, and that's also kind of on my mind, trying to still settle into my new home, relatively new. I'm also getting used to working nights because I'm teaching English online, and I'm working in the overnight hours, and so my hours are all weird, and it's going really well, and I really feel good about like the work I'm doing, and I'm helping people learn English who are really trying to better themselves, and that's just awesome, and I'm really happy with that. And but I'm still getting used to that, so I'm kind of settling into that too, and that I want to focus on that as well. In the meantime, the other thing too is my oldest son is graduating this year, and so with the coronavirus and everything, that's just thrown off a lot of his senior year, and so there's a lot going on with when you have a kid who's graduating, you want to do like a graduation party, whenever that's allowed again, and then you want to kind of focus on their future, because like both my sons are at the tail end of their high school years. And so we're talking about colleges and like what do they want to do with their life. And I just feel like I need to have more of a focus on them and on that as well. So I guess just all these things kind of wrap together, like my teaching and the kids, settling into our house, settling into my new job, focusing on, applying to schools. All of that's kind of on my mind right now. And getting back to doing things that I enjoy, like reading a book, which I haven't had a lot of time to do over the last few years. But I really enjoy being able to get into books and read a little bit more. And honestly, I've been watching a lot of Netflix when I have time over the overnight hours. I've probably been watching too much and binging too much, but on Netflix, but it's been fun, and I just want to be able to have the freedom to do those things and not feel like, I better get another podcast out, or whatever. So, I just think I need that right now. So anyway, I'm sorry if this was rambling. I'm sorry if it sounded like I was complaining, because it's not what I intended. I just want to update everybody on kind of this kind of phase of my life and what's going on with the podcast. Essentially just to let you know, what's going to happen kind of from here on out. So that's the plan. To those of you who've reached out via email, I replied to 2 people and didn't hear back. So hopefully a couple weeks ago, I had replied to some emails and didn't hear anything. So if you've emailed me and you haven't heard back, feel free to email me again. From now on, I'm going to give out the email I know I'll always have, and that's vodpodcast@gmail.com. So email that email if you want to just say hello. I always love just saying hi to people. If you want to connect, that's how you can reach me. Without sounding too sappy or whatever, I don't know how to describe this, but it's just been it's like a really, it's kind of a sentimental decision, or it's there's a lot of emotion for me tied up in this podcast. And in the last 3 years, podcast is just over 3 years old now. And so, but there's a lot of emotion kind of wrapped up in what it took to start the podcast, the stage of life I was in when I started it, the goodness that it's brought me, and just how much it's just helped me process my own deconversion, and the friends I've made and the support I've felt from all of you has been amazing. And that has been so worth it. And so to put this on the back burner and say, like, I don't know, if and when I'm going to post another episode, but I'm going to kind of keep it open. There's part of that that's really hard. I don't think I'm ready to think about like not doing this, because like I said, being in touch with and in tune with this community of people. And when I say community, I just mean people who've deconverted, whether they listen to this podcast or not. Just staying in touch with those people. I just feel like these are my people, people who listen to this podcast, who understand and have gone through this experience. Like, these are the people that I feel connected to. And we all understand what we've all been through and how hard it is. So I don't want to ever give that up. I want to be able to stay in touch with folks like us. Creating a podcast, it takes work. But for anyone thinking about it, for me, it was a huge reason why I was able to process my deconversion and feel more confident in who I am as a atheist and being more open about being an atheist. It's really helped me with that. So if you're thinking about doing it, I would just say go for it and make it whatever you want it to be. You know, you can make it about whatever you want, but talking to people about deconversion, talking about it with people who've gone through it, has been really healing for me. And I know it's been for many of you. Talking about your stories when you've been on the podcast or listening to stories of people who've been on the podcast. So it's a really healing thing. So if you're thinking about doing a podcast, go for it. The more stories, the better. And the more of us that tell our stories in any format, whether it be a podcast or just sitting around, someone's living room talking about what you went through and sharing your story with people who empathize with you or people who need to understand where you're coming from better, whether it be family or friends or anyone. Just getting our stories out there and sharing them. One, it's an encouragement to those of us who need to hear those stories. But two, it's also showing the world of people, the world of religious people, that it's letting them see our perspective and hear our voices. And that's really important. Those are the two reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, was to encourage us and also for others to hear us, for our voices to be heard, for our stories to be told. So I would encourage any of you and all of you to do anything you can to get your story out there or get the stories of others out there. It will make the world a better place. Sorry, I'm getting cheesy, but anyway, that's how I feel. I think it would make the world a better place, and it'll make you feel better, is what I'm trying to say. It made me feel better and helped me process everything. So I'm not going to say goodbye because I don't want this to be a goodbye. So I'll just say I look forward to keeping in touch with all of you. So like I said, I'm not going to say goodbye because I don't want this to be goodbye. And I don't like to commit to things like that anyway, so I'm just going to keep it open-ended because I don't want to have to make a decision about that right now. But what I will say is that, and I've said this before, but I just so appreciate all of you who've listened, who keep listening, who've listened from the beginning, or people who are just starting to hear about the podcast. When you email me, I try so hard to get back to you and get back to you quickly, but it's hard for me sometimes to reply. I'm not very quick or good with social media or emails, but I try. And I love getting the emails and the messages and things. But I just so appreciate all of you, and you guys have helped me so much, and I'm so glad that the stories on the podcast have helped you too. So thank you for everything. I wish all of you the very, very best in your process, in your deconversion, or in your next phase of life, whatever that may be. I really do hope that we can stay in touch. And if not, I wish you the best. And I hope that the next phase of your life is awesome, and you can move through and past this part of your life too, where it's always going to be a part of you and always going to be a significant part of your life, but that you can develop as a person and find your place and find your thing that you want to do with your life, whether that be a career or something in addition to your career that helps people, whatever that is. I just wish everyone the best, and thank you again for listening. All right, take care, everyone.